Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm taking part in the Close to My Heart Twisted Sisters YouTube hop. So I will have a playlist to that below. So make sure you click on that and check out what the other CTMH girls have been creating this month. The actual product that I have picked to twist today are these triangle trees stencils, and I'm going to show you 5 different ways to use one of these stencils in ways that you might not have already thought about. You can see by the product I've got in front of me that this is a collection. You can purchase things individually. There is a coordinating stamp set, coordinating thin cuts, and with the stencils there are actually 2 of them, so they layer up. So one has the base of the trees with all the tree sizes, and then this one layers over the top so that you can add the details to some of them except for the small ones. And this has all the details that you need to create your own Christmas trees. I'm just going to quickly bring in the catalogue so I can show you how they have been used in the traditional tree format. You can see that the thin cuts have been used here to cut out some various shapes in pattern papers, and the stamps have been used in the background as well to add a little bit more layering to this gorgeous layout. And then on the actual product page you can see where they have been used traditionally as trees. So you can see here they've used the stamps, the stencil and the thin cuts and created some gorgeous projects. And what I'm showing you today is just using this base layer here for the triangle trees. I'm not going to use this overlay part at all, but you can see just by looking at this that there are so many options with patterns on the trees and using the triangles. It's a really versatile piece and will create some beautiful artwork with Christmas trees. So let's get started with this. This video is going to be a little bit different from what I've done in the past because I want to encourage you to have a play with your stencils. Get out some scrap paper and just have a play with it. You can see here I've tried layering things up. You can make a pinwheel type design. I'm going to show you how I've created banners and also some other elements here. So this helps me get the whole process working on how I want to use an actual product. And I've already had a play with some artwork and I've created some cards. And what I want to show you today is how you can transfer this design onto a layout, and that's going to be the case with all of the projects that I show you today. I've got completed cards to show you, and I'm going to show you how to achieve these results on a 12 by 12 scrapbooking layout, or you could cut them down to make whatever size you want to make. You can see this one here, I've created a border, and what I've done with this is actually done it on a 12-inch piece of paper, and then I've trimmed it down to fit a slimline card, which is 3.5 by 8.5 inches. And then I haven't let this other piece go to waste. I've made another little note card with this piece. So this design here can transfer very easily onto a 12 by 12 layout. So what I need to do is decide on the size of triangle I'm going to use, and then I'm going to bring in my masking tape. Now this green tape is excellent for masking off, and I'm just going to bring in what I've been using. I have reused these pieces so much, so you can see it's quite saturated with ink, but it's still holding up. So you don't have to keep masking off areas and using new tape. You can keep reusing it. And I've only used 2 colors for this. It looks a little bit like Limeade here, but basically what I've used is Journey and Honey Butter, and blending over top of this gives you a nice green tone. Now I've got my grip mat here. This is a Tim Holtz grip mat and I really love it. So it works really well to hold everything in place and my ink pads don't move around. So what I'm going to do is mask off this one triangle here. And I'm going to be fairly generous because I do not want my brushes to go outside this area, because then I'm going to end up with lines. I'm going quite close to the triangle. And the reason why I love this tape, it's very low tack, so it's not going to pull up my white daisy piece at all that I've got here. Now I've got one triangle done here, and so that I don't have to keep swapping out with the colors and everything, I'm going to use this with the blue, which is Journey. Journey is our color of the year and I absolutely love it. And then I'm going to mask off another triangle so that I can use it for the yellow. So I want to make sure I get the same size and do exactly the same thing for the yellow. You don't necessarily have to label everything, but I find that way I just keep on track with what I'm doing and I don't get confused. Now, when it comes to lining things up, I'm going to make sure that I've got my piece of paper down square on my work surface so that I can have my stencil running square. And that's just to try and keep me on track as much as possible. But what I'm also going to do is bring in part of this grip mat. I did cut it in half, but this way the stencil is going to grip onto this grip mat and I don't have to mask that down as well because I'm going to be moving it all the time. I'm going to bring in some scratch paper so that I can tap off for my journey. It really is quite a strong colour and I don't want quite that strong. I just want a light hand and a small amount of ink so that the colours will layer on top of each other. So once I've done my first triangle, I can lift this up and then I'm going to rotate it and line it up so that the two bases line up next to each other. And I can tell by the edges of my paper that I've got this running fairly straight across here. And I've gone straight in and I haven't inked my brush up. I don't want too much colour coming on this. And then what I'm going to do is keep working with this and running it point to point. So I'm going to come back in with this one, rotating it around. I'm lining up the little point there. Make sure I tap off before I go straight in with a fully loaded brush. And then keep working my way all the way across the section of this paper. That's my first layer done with the Journey ink. It really is such a gorgeous blue. I love the colour of the year that we have. And now I'm going to come in with honey butter, and what I want to do is align this up so that the base of the honey butter triangle, this base part here, is going to be right across this middle point here. And then I just repeat the process. Now I haven't brushed any ink off with the honey butter. I'm just going straight in, and I do recommend coming in from the edges where the masking tape is. And I think you can see here that I'm getting another tone with this from the blue. So it's coming in a little bit greener, and that's what I want to get. So then I just need to repeat the process and line this up on the edge for each one. So I'm putting the base edge of the triangle up against the base edge with a little bit peeking out. And this way I know I can line this up just a little bit easier if I overlap them just a little bit. And then all I need to do, now that I've done that section, is line that up and repeat the process going across the full length of this 12 by 12 piece. So you can see I'm just coming to the last little bit of this border, and when I pull this away, you've got the graduation of colours between the honey butter and the Journey, which is a really, really lovely combination. And I think this really makes an effective border, whether it be in a portrait or a landscape orientation. And if you wanted to, you could go back in and keep repeating this to create more of this quilted type look going across your page. And you could do it with various colours, as long as they blend well together where they're going to intersect. So you can see with the yellow and the blue, this is made of green. So just make sure you pay attention to rainbow order. And if they're next to each other on rainbow order, then they're going to blend quite well together. So what I'm going to do is just keep going and showing you how to do this for a 12 by 12 page, and I will have still shots up at some stage of my finished 12 by 12 layouts, but I wanted to show you that you can create these sort of things and then cut them down to create card bases as well. So playing on a 12 by 12 piece of paper means you can create multiple card fronts. I could have cut this into two sections to make two A2 size cards. So I'm just going to clean up my stencils a little bit. I'm going to save this tape so that I can use it again in the video. As I said, I've got 5 different ways of using these triangle stencils that are not in an actual tree format. So that's my twist that I'm showing you today. So I'll be back in a moment with my second option. For the second option, I'm going to actually make a banner with the triangles. And I'm going to use Journey and Limeade together because I do love the blues and greens. There's a bit of a theme going with this. I'm pretty much sticking with the blues and greens throughout this, and the yellow, of course, as well. So this is a little card I put together, and this stamp set is no longer available, unfortunately. It's called Hot Air Balloon Fest. But I thought it would be fun to create a little birthday card and have a banner swag going across here. I've cut the white panel down so that it measures 4.5 by 3.25. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to have this little piece going across here, but I wanted to have the hot air balloon coming off the edge of this card panel here, which I have popped up on some foam tape, and I'll put a list of all the markers that I've used. I've used the Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers to colour this in, and some little details with a white gel pen, and I've stenciled some clouds on here with glacier ink and a very light hand from the Holiday Express set here, and there was stencils, coordinating thin cuts and stamp set as well. So I'm going to show you how I've created that, and you can see I've already gone ahead, I've done my masking. I'm going to use green, which is the Limeade, and blue Journey, and I'm just going to start somewhere around here, and I need to put a guideline in here because if I try and do something like this I can't actually see through because I've masked off. So I'm just going to hand draw where I want my pennant to sort of go on a little bit of an arc. I don't know if the pencil line is picking up on camera, but it's going to help me with placements for this banner piece. I'm going to start with blue, so I'm going to start with the Journey, and I'm bringing in base of this triangle. All the flat edges here I'm calling the base because that's sort of like where the base of a Christmas tree would be, and I'm just going to start with the first one. I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did before with tapping the ink off before I bring it in. I still want quite a rich blue, not quite as pale as the other one, but I don't want it to be too heavy. And for this one, I'm going to go a little bit darker at top and blend down with a lighter hand towards the bottom. And then I can just move this around, line up. There's my pencil line just here, so I can come down a little bit, and that's going to help me with the movement and the curve of going across with this banner piece. So I'm tapping off a little bit darker and then down to light. This one's all fairly even with the color spread all the way across, but for this one I want a little bit of shading to be a little bit deeper at the top. And then I'm going to continue on rotating my stencil just a little bit so I get a nice curve happening. So there's all my banner pieces done for the Journey, and you can see the depth of colour closer to the top section here and then coming down to a lighter blue. So now that I've done the blue, I'm going to come in with the Limeade, and it's just started to rain and we're expecting a bit of a thunderstorm, so hopefully that will hold off so that you don't get too much noise happening in the background. But what I'm going to do for these is go in between each banner piece, and I need to let my ink dry a little bit so that I can rub away this pencil line before I come in with my Limeade. So what I'm going to do is line these up so that they sort of go from point to point at the top mid areas of these previous blue ones, and then they'll all stagger across quite nicely in that format. So I've taken away my pencil line. I'm going to put this over top, as I said, lining it up somewhere in the middle. Doesn't have to be totally perfect. And then I'm going to come in, I'm just going to put my blue brush away so that I don't pick up the wrong one, and I'm going to do the same technique. Now my Limeade isn't quite as juicy as my Journey, so I just need to work a little bit harder to get the depth of colour at the top section of the banner, and then I'm going to come down with a lighter hand. Now I'm going to peel this up and have a little look, and I quite like how that's looking. So then I can line up that point to the next one and keep going across this whole pennant. And obviously I need to go back and fill in this section here. I'm purposefully going off the edge of my page rather than trying to make everything line up perfectly. I quite like the fact that they go off the edge of the page. I love it when elements go off the edge of the page. For me, that's just a little bit more pleasing than having everything contained within an area, especially when you're working with fun things like banners and even stickers. I like hanging them off the edge of pages as well. So I'm going to continue on with this, and then I'll be back to show you the finished result of this little banner piece. I finished off my banner piece here, and I love how the blues and greens look so good together, and layering up the stencil with these two colours works really well. If you wanted more dimension to this, and then you could tuck some photos underneath the banner, you could definitely stencil one layer directly onto the page and then stencil the top layers onto a different piece of paper so that you could bring in the thin cuts, because these fit perfectly with the stencils and they fit perfectly with the stamp set as well. And you could pop some of these up with 3 3D foam tape and give a little bit more dimension. And for this one, in between each of these little pennants, I've used the Bitty Sparkles. I think the Bitty Sparkles and the Clear Sparkles are sort of my favourite because they go with everything, but I love this Journey colour, and I know that once I put the photos and everything on here, I can use these gems to accent little corner areas as well. So that's number 2. We're going to move on to number 3 now. For number 3, I'm going to create some arrow sort of effects with one of the triangle sizes here and all the same colour. Now you could mix and match the colours with this. I've kept it fairly monochromatic, and I've just done 2 strips going across like this to match this little car image. This is one that I have had for quite some time, so it's race car birthday occasions, and I just love this car and the elements on here. So I wanted to bring that back because I thought this would work beautifully with the arrow segments. So what I've done with this one is apply different pressure and different amount of inks as I go across. I'm using Limeade. I'm inking up quite a lot here, and I want a fairly deep colour going across here. Now I haven't started off the edge here, so you can see pounce marks here. So it's always wise when you're coming in with your ink just to start a little bit off the edge. You don't have to start too much. You can see I'm building up the colour around the outside here. But because this is all going to be layered, I'm just going to keep going with this and applying more and more ink to this section. So that's quite a strong depth of colour here. And then I just lift my stencil up and I'm going to move it along, trying to keep it horizontal. Now I've got edges of triangles here that I can use as a reference point to make sure that everything is nice and straight. And then I'm going to bring this in just a little way so that I've got about this much of white around all of this triangle. And this time I'm not going to go quite as heavy. So I haven't inked up quite as much, and I'm not pressing quite as hard as what I did with the first one. So this is just building up some colour. I can always add more in if I think it's too light, because remember I want to fade this out as the arrow part keeps going across the page. It's surprising how much actual ink transfers through. When you're looking at it through your stencil, you don't think you've got quite enough on there, but when you lift up your stencil and peer at it, you can see there's quite a lot of ink coming through on that one. So once again, I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to come along, and I've got this little visual reference here with about how much I want to show for the next lot, and then come in with some more ink and keep working at this as I build it up, going across a section of this page. I'm not going to go all the way across. I want this to come in from this edge here that will point towards probably a title on my page, and then I'm going to repeat this process with some of the arrows coming down this way. But you can see without even inking up my brush again, I've got enough depth of colour here to give that monochromatic fading out sort of look. And I'm going to repeat that for this section up here as well. You could definitely use this technique to create different size triangles. Actually, I might do that now so that you can have a look. So I'm going to ink this up with quite a heavy hand. So there's my first one. Now I can reposition my tape to do a different size triangle, and you can see that this green tape holds up really, really well. There's a lot of ink on here. You'll know when you can't use it anymore, when it becomes too saturated and won't adhere to your piece of plastic or your stencil material. So this one I'm going to use a fairly medium sort of hand with this, and then I'm going to peel this off and put this medium-sized triangle. So by medium, I mean the one in between these two sizes. I'm going to put this one here. I'm going to do this one with a fairly light hand and then have a look at it and see if I need to add some more strength to it. I just need to pick this up, peel it back, a little bit more ink, I think. Because remember, when you're doing this and layering them over the top of each other, where you've got these other sections, they're going to get darker and darker with the more ink that you apply. I love how that looks, so I'm going to stop there. So the orientation of this page is going to be this way. So I've got a chevron or an arrow type element coming across the bottom, and then this section at the top that sort of replicates this one down here without matching it too much. So I'm just going to bring the card back in again. I've used some Journey sequins here, and I've matted this panel onto Journey cardstock, and I really do love how Limeade and Journey work so well together. That's number 3. Hang around. I've got number 4 and 5 to go yet, but I'm going to speed up the process just a little bit more. For the fourth way of using this triangle tree stencil, I'm going to do just some random triangles. So I'm using Limeade and Journey again, and you can see on the card panel I have used the smallest one here, and then I've brought in some stamping and some splattering. Now the thanks so much and the other thank you that you saw on the other card before is from the November Thanks a Bunch Stamp of the Month, and this little crosshatch is just here as well. So the Stamp of the Month, as you've heard me talk about before, is available with an $80 order for just $9, or if you're a VIP you do an $80 order and you can add this to your cart for free. And this is quite cute with all of the little sayings and everything and the combinations that you can make for your projects. This here, thankful, grateful, blessed, all will nestle together because of the way the swoops are here with the word art. So that would make a really gorgeous panel for a scrapbook layout. So what I'm going to do for this one is upsize it a little bit. I'm not going to do the small ones, I'm going to do the larger ones, and I'm going to do exactly what I've done before with Journey ink. I'm going to take a bit of the ink off and just come in quickly. I'm not looking for perfection on these at all because I'm going to be adding some ink splatters and everything. So all I'm wanting to do is just add in some colors. So now you can see the benefits of having two triangles masked off at the same time, because now I can go through and line these up and virtually get two done at the same time. So back in with Journey ink. So the Journey is going over top of the Limeade for this one. And then the Limeade is going to go over the top of the Journey for this. Now this is not necessarily going to work all the way across the page because I'm not going to be able to line these up so that they don't come together. I want to keep each two sections separate, and I also want to keep rotating my stencil so that I don't have the same colorway all the time with the same orientation. So a quick come in with Limeade, and then I'm going to rotate my stencil so that the Journey is in a different orientation. And they are all going to overlap each other, and I'm going to continue doing this right across the page. And I'm also going to have some coming off the edge of the page as well. And because I'm going to add splatters to this, I'm not looking for a perfect blend through each of these stencils. What I'm going to do now is come in with this little crosshatch type stamp, and I'm going to stamp connecting these triangles, and you can see here that it's quite a light hand with Journey. So what I decided was first generation was strong, second generation was quite strong too, third generation to me matched the subtlety of this stencil work here. So I'm just going to stamp off twice. And because this is a bigger area than what is on the card, I'm actually going to put more than one on each. There's no real rhyme or reason to this. I just have to remember to stamp off twice each time. And it's just adding another little feature to these triangles. I'm going to try not to make it so matchy-matchy. When I'm talking, I tend to just keep going and stamping, and I don't quite think about where things are going all the time. I don't want them all to be exactly the same. So this part's all done now. Now I want to do some splatters. So I'm just going to put some Journey ink down on my all-purpose mat here. And I'm also going to put some Limeade down as well. I'm going to bring in my splatter box, and I'm going to use a paintbrush to splatter some ink across this. And I want to replicate these large splatters. So I've just got my jar here with some water in it, and I've got quite a large round brush here, and I'm going to add quite a bit of water to this, and then I'm just going to tap with my finger, and this will create quite large splatters, and that's what I'm looking for. And I want it to go over the top of all of these triangles and then spread out as well. You'll notice I haven't got anything in the middle here. That's because I'm going to have photos in that section. And then I just need to clean my brush off a little bit and add some more water to this Journey. Now the Journey here you can see is quite a strong colour. So I'm just going to keep adding some more water to this until I get it about the right colour that I want. So just watering it down a little bit more, and I think I need a little bit more. It's such a gorgeous strong colour. And then I'm going to come in and tap with my finger again. You can see it's making big ones and smaller ones. And I'm actually wearing some of it. So you do want to use a splatter box for this. Put some more just up here. And I love how that looks. So I'm going to call that done. And I think adding the splatters and also the little crosshatch type stamped element just brings all of this together. And you can use this with any stencil shape. It doesn't have to be the triangles. If you've got hearts and circles and squares, any of those sort of shapes will work quite well with this type of layout. So here's the base for the scrapbook layout, and you can see how it's replicated in the card here. And I'm really loving upsizing the designs that I've created for the card bases into base layers for scrapbook layouts. Now I can cut this down into an 11 by 8.5 inch project if I want, or even into a 6 by 6 or 6 by 8 project. And I'm really creating twofers because I've already done this and I've got everything out, so I can create a card and a scrapbook layout at the same time. So this is the fifth way that I have used the triangle trees. I have picked a triangle here and I've inked it up with Capri ink, I think I used for this one, and then I have rotated it and done a honey butter one, rotated it again and used a limeade. I've used the same triangle all the way through, and you can definitely replicate this for a scrapbook layout. This one takes some time to line it up, so I'm not going to show you on the video, but I think you'll be able to tell just by the card panel here how to create this type of background panel, and it can definitely be translated into a scrapbook layout. I probably wouldn't recommend doing the smallest triangle. You're going to be stenciling for quite some time. You could definitely use the largest one here to create a similar look to this. I've used a heavier hand at the bottom just like I did for the banner or the pennant type one, and brought it down to a lighter hand at the point. And I've done that for each of them with the 3 colors. And for some troubleshooting with this one, I didn't quite get them all equally spaced. So that was very obvious when there was white in between. So what I did was I just brought in the brush with the limeade and went over top of everything here to soften that stark white look and to sort of disguise a little bit that not everything is perfectly aligned. And you can see that I've got the white gel pen going around in certain sections. I haven't done a complete outline. I've done disjointed lines just going around the shape of the triangle just to add a little bit more of a feature to this card panel, and a simple thank you with some clear sparkles. I hope you've enjoyed all the projects that I've shared with you today. Just 5 ideas of what you can do with this triangle trees stencil. It's so super flexible. There are so many different things that you can do with this. What I've shown you today are just some simple ways to create some fun borders, banners and background pieces for your cards and also for your scrapbooking layouts. I will of course have everything linked below so you can check out what I've used today, and don't forget to go and look at what the other Twisted Sisters from Close to My Heart have done with their products from the brand new November-December catalogue. As always, happy crafting. I hope to see you next time, and bye for now.